All right, we're in Matthew chapter 9 and picking up in verse 27, as you could guess by the dramatic presentation. Matthew 9:27 goes something like this. You guys ready? Oh, here it comes. As Jesus went on from there, two men followed him, crying out, "Have mercy on us, Son of David." When he entered the house, the blind man came up to him, and Jesus said to them, "Do you believe that I am able to do this?" And they said to him, "Yes, Lord." Then he touched their eyes, saying, "It shall be done to you according to your faith." And their eyes were opened, and Jesus sternly warned them, "See that no one knows about this." But they went out and spread the news about him throughout all that land. All right. We are picking up right where we have been. We've been in Capernaum, and all these miracles are happening, and Jesus is going from one place to another. As he's going to heal one person, he's healing other people, and all this is going on. These blind men are almost certainly from Capernaum, and town to town travel is pretty tough if you're blind, so they probably are still in the same town, stay in the same town. They have probably, well, no, not probably, but obviously have never seen Jesus, but they have heard. And the chances are they have heard from afar or heard secondhand. They heard people tell stories. Because again, as a blind person is not people, why would you get a front row seat? You can't see anyway, so people aren't let, it would be hard enough if people let you get there to find your way to the front, but you're not going to get close in those kind of crowds. You're going to be on the outside. It's dangerous to try to walk into a crowd when you're blind. So they have likely heard secondhand stories of things that Jesus has done. They may have heard his voice from a distance, but something in the testimonies that they have heard, the things that they have heard themselves stirred up their faith. They have believed that Jesus could do something. And now this faith manifests itself as they hear a crowd going by, and certainly they have asked someone what's going on, and they can't see it. It's Jesus, and now they start crying out. To be clear, this is not the Bartimaeus story. Bartimaeus will appear later in Matthew's gospel, and he is in the other gospels. The story shares the fact that there's a blind man, and he cries out, "Have mercy on me, Son of David." But otherwise, this is in Capernaum, that's in Jericho, this goes on in a house, that goes on in the street. They're two different stories, to be clear. These men are crying out, "Son of David, have mercy on us." Now, Son of David is a clear messianic title. They are acknowledging publicly that Jesus is the Messiah. It's very likely that a good number of people in the crowd were probably thinking the same thing, but it's the blind men who sing it out, cry it out, and they probably, on this one area, have an advantage, because those of us who see, when you say something stupid, people around you give you that, "Wow, that was dumb," look. And that will slow you down. That kind of censors you. Even if nobody says anything, you get that look like, "What are you talking about?" And even if it's not stupid, but it's just not publicly appropriate, Daryl, and you say things that not everybody wants to hear, or not everyone wants to say out loud, and they give you that look, and you go, oh, never mind, sorry, and you back up. But the blind men, they don't get that censor. They don't know what people, how they're reacting to what they're saying. And so what they're feeling, what other people might have been feeling, they're feeling also, but they have, in this one area, the advantage to be like, "I don't know what people think about this, but I think that's Jesus, and I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it out loud," because they want to get the attention of Jesus. And so they cry out what is on other people's hearts, but their hearts are able to let it loose. "Son of David, have mercy on me." And so they're crying out to Jesus. Jesus continues on his way into a house. Could have been his house, could have been the house that he had come from, Levi's house, could have been anywhere, whatever. It doesn't matter. He went into a house. He did not go into the house to avoid these people. He went into the house to avoid the crowd. The blind men were allowed into the house. This is consistent with the way Jesus deals with healing throughout the Gospels. And we should take note that sometimes I think we read those passages that say stuff like, and the whole town, everyone that was sick or afflicted came to Jesus and he healed them all. When there is that general statement, I'm afraid that sometimes we project a TV evangelist scenario on Jesus, and we say, well, there's a big crowd of people, so I guess Jesus went down like going, high five, high-fiving everybody's forehead, so be healed, be healed, be healed, and went down through the line. But we're projecting that on Jesus. If you're ever thinking that, we're just projecting that on Jesus, because that's not what the Scripture shows. The Scripture, whenever it gives us details on how he ministered to the sick, every time he spends time with them personally, connecting with them, communicating with them, talking to them. Even when it seems like there is no reason to ask the question, oh, paralyzed man, what would you like me to do? He takes time to communicate with them, that there's a back and forth. He asks, how long has it been this way? And so on and so forth. There's always connection, and there's always a personal thing. Even in the case of the woman who thinks that she could sneak up in the crowd and just touch the hem of his garment, she gets healed and ready to run off, and he has to stop her and say no. Like the healing is not his purpose. His purpose is to connect and communicate the love of God to people. So his healing ministry should never be thought of as, oh, pow, 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 throwing fireballs of healing at everybody, boom, boom, pow, pow, gotcha, and then out the door. Jesus came to minister to people, to get to know them, to communicate, to connect with them. So Jesus goes into the house not to dodge these people, but to dodge the crowd and to bring in the blind men. The blind men come in asking to be healed. Jesus asked them, do you believe that I am able to do this? Yes, Lord. And he touched their eyes, saying, it shall be done to you according to your faith. You should understand that not your healing is in proportion to the size of your faith. You should not understand it that way. You should understand it that you're healed because of your faith, not in proportion to your faith. What I mean is, or to clarify, Jesus says faith the size of a mustard seed could move a mountain. And that by itself ought to make it clear to us that it is not like I have to have, this gigantic faith. I got to build up this super faith before I could get a super healing, because that's misguided. What Jesus means is that it is by your faith that you are healed, in this sense, that your faith, however small it is, your faith is in the right person, right? So when Jesus comes, or when they come into Jesus and he asks them, do you believe I am able to do this? He's trying to clarify, in a sense, where their faith is. And this, because you could have all this, this is not faith for healing, this is faith in Jesus. That's the faith that you need. It is a mistake to think that you have to have faith for healing. That's not what God requires of us. He requires that we have faith in him. So Jesus wants to make sure that you have faith in me. Not that you've come here with superstitious faith for healing, of superstitious faith in magic, some kind of, I'm all pumped up in my faith. I got super faith. I can believe for anything. Like that's self-inflated self-righteousness. That's not it. This is a simple, have mercy on me, Jesus, faith. I have nothing, and I'm bringing just the little bit that I have and I give it to you. You do what you choose to do. And that submission, that submissive faith, where it doesn't have to be great, it just has to be in Him. It's not the greatness of your faith, it's the greatness of the one you have faith in. That's where it's at. It's not faith for healing, it's faith in Jesus. And so, Jesus, in conversation with them, and I'm, again, Matthew as well as the Gospels, they all make these things so concise. And I suspect that there was more conversation between them. But this is what Jesus is trying to make sure, that they are having faith in Him. Their faith is in Him, and their healing comes by that faith in Him. Not by the power of their faith, but by Him. And their faith was in Him. And so they're healed, and Jesus says, see to it that no one knows about this. This is an oddity. Please do not take this as a rule. This is not a principle to live by. Jesus does something amazing in your life. Do not apply, Jesus did something amazing. And Matthew 9:30 says, make sure no one knows about it. That is not how you apply this. There is a very limited time in the history of the world where Jesus would ever say this, and there are very clear reasons why He was saying this. He was saying this to them at that moment to avoid being seen as the magic miracle man who comes into town and that's all it's about. Oh gosh, he's going to put on a show, everybody. Let's go down and see the spectacle. That Jesus is trying to avoid. Jesus, out of compassion, wants to heal, but He does not want to be a show. He doesn't want your healing to be a show. He doesn't want to become just the genie that people just catch up with and go, hey, can you grant me this wish? That's not who He is. It's not who He wants people to think of Him as. And so He, several times, but not every time, several times will say to people, don't talk about this. That's because of the attitude of the people. He's trying to manage the whole, the whole excitement of the crowd. He's trying to manage that. It's also because during His earthly ministry, He was trying to combat the misguided ideas about what the Messiah and the kingdom of heaven should be. And so the Jewish people, having the scripture, were finding themselves focused on certain prophecies concerning the Messiah, and they were focused on that because of the circumstances they were living in. They were oppressed, they were without power, they were going through this whole thing where they can't rule themselves, and the Roman Empire and blah, all this mess, right? And that caused them to focus on the messianic prophecies that seem to emphasize the physical nature of this kingdom and this king. And so they had this idea that the Messiah would be a physical king, that He would bring, and this idea of Jesus healing everybody just in their minds was just like, oh man, this is next level. This is the Messiah. He's going to bring us physical healing. The Messiah, He's going to bring us prosperity. We're going to be rich. He's going to bring us peace from our enemies. He's going to put together a military force where we're going to literally destroy our enemies, and we're going to set up a kingdom, literal kingdom with a cool government where He's going to lay down the law, and it's going to be awesome, and a great throne, and we'll all hang out, and eventually He'll die, and then His son will reign, and then on and on and on, and it'll be like David's kingdom, but better. And that's what they were imagining the Messiah was going to be, and Jesus, His whole 3 years is trying to derail them from that idea and get them to understand that the the purpose of the Messiah was to bring them freedom from their spiritual bondage of sin and guilt and all that stuff, and bring them the new birth. He has a difficult time while in the flesh. You would think that his death and resurrection would have put that whole thing away forever, but here we are 2,000 years later, and we still struggle with the idea that our kingdom is not of this world. Our kingdom is a spiritual kingdom. And whatever this crazy world does, our kingdom is a spiritual kingdom. And so we ought to get on board with it. But the time of the earthly ministry of Jesus, he had a difficulty trying to manage the expectations of the people and the understanding of what they thought the Messiah was to be. So that's specifically why Jesus is telling them to not go out and tell everybody right now. That does not apply to us. We are told over and over and over again, go. Preach, go. You too must testify. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. It is our responsibility to testify to what God has done for us. And so I think it would be the right thing to do if we took some time this morning to testify to some of the things that God has done for us. I think that's what stirred up these guys, that they probably heard like maybe a couple ladies sitting around a table telling stories about Jesus. And they thought, if Jesus could do those things, I want to find Jesus. And their faith may have been stirred up by something very much like that. There's people in your life you don't think are listening, but when you tell stories and when you talk about the Lord and what he's doing in your life, they're overhearing it. And sometimes they act like they're ignoring it, but it's getting in there. And that's how faith starts. Faith comes by hearing by the word of Christ.